Yes, today we are speaking about Africa and business. And we are saying we want to show the business side of Africa and show the business side of Africa the world rarely sees. In most times, the media, the big media houses have shown Africa as in poverty, Africa as in wars, Africa as aid dependent, but it has not shown much of the Africa that is evolving today. There is an evolution in Africa that is evolving industries, involving modern farming, involving high-tech startups that are starting in Africa. And I believe it's high time we, the young generation, we came on board so that we show the world this real part of Africa that the world rarely sees. For instance, right now, we're talking about Africa that is merging with the youngest population on the earth. Over 80% population being less than 50 years. So that is the labor we're talking about. For any continent, for any community to evolve, it must have a working labor force, because cost of production matters much in doing business. So we are seeing the part of Africa today where there are emerging industries. For instance, when we talk about farming, most people keep thinking we're talking about farming of on the farm alone. No, we're not talking about being on the farm alone. There is a lot that comes with farming, especially when we talk about modern farming. In Africa, Africa is best suited with one of the fertile soils in the world over. Now, how do we use these fertile soils to gain momentum in modern farming? So we need policies, especially government policies, that will push for tax-free supply of modern agricultural equipment, like tractors, like storage containers, like startup, AI tools that work well with the farming sector, especially in detection of pests and diseases. So I believe we, the young generation, and the entire public, the entire generation, we need to come up together and see how do we solve the problem. There's been a problem in Africa. The China has been export of raw materials. I would say that has been one of the biggest areas that has caused poverty in Africa, because if you don't have industries, then you have poverty because people will not have where to work from. So we are saying for this to stop, the African governments, the African investors, whoever is involved, whoever wants to do business in Africa, should focus so much on starting to add value on the raw materials that are produced in Africa. For instance, when you talk about coffee, Africa has been exporting raw coffee beans, and find a kilogram, which is about 3 pounds, is being sold at less than $3-4. However, if you add value, and for instance you are buying cappuccino, you're buying 3 pounds, the same 3 pounds or 1 kilogram, at close to $25. So you see Africa misses this gap of almost $20 on a kilogram or on the 3 pounds of coffee. And that goes on to all other materials. When you look at cobalt in DRC Congo, the same price. If you look at the copper in Zambia, the same price. So it's time for the governments to shape a policy that reduces on exportation of raw materials and attract investors to come and do value addition on these materials. By doing that, one, it increases the government revenue. Two, it also secures the job market for the youngest population. And many things will come up. If you say we are now, for instance, engaged in modern farming, it doesn't stop on the farm. It also brings in investors who are going to put up storage facilities, like the grainers, the syringes, the cold warehouses that will store these products. You're talking about manufacturing industries that will come to process these agricultural products to make them into exportable finished products. Talking about transportation, you're talking about insurances that will come on board to make sure that everything is any place and it's sure. So I believe the problem, especially when it comes to business in Africa, is not that there are no materials, it's not that there's no labor, but because our policies right now have not been so much shaped to make sure that there is value addition in our products. Instead, it was designed by whoever designed it, but most times we shall say the colonial masters, to make sure that we keep exporting raw materials and buying the same materials on a high or inflated price. And by doing that, it keeps our GDPs less, because our import and export substitution will be less compared to these countries that are producing, that are adding value on our raw materials. I therefore feel that we are going to be engaging in a debate of value addition on the products, on the materials that are produced locally in African countries. I have given an example of Uganda producing the highest coffee right now, I think second to Ethiopia. We look at cobalt from DRC, is the highest producer of cobalt, possibly in the whole world. But there are no factories to add value to this, and everyone knows the value it has if you to put up a value addition in this cobalt, because these are materials that we use to make sure that we have these batteries, especially EV cars and everything. So I believe it's high time that the young population, the young generations, the investors all over the world, both in Africa, locally, and I would encourage local investors, especially the youth, they should start thinking on how to make sure they take on this, because the millennials have failed, I must say. They have done their part, especially in some countries where they have brought peace. Now that the peace is there in some countries, now the youngest generation, the Gen Zs, should be thinking strategically on how they are going to work on these vast raw materials that are produced in our countries, to make sure that they add value and then export them to the world developed markets. And by then doing that, we shall have a balanced import and export substitution. Our GDPs will go high. We shall have poverty elevation at high levels. We shall have so much coming in than so much going up. And we shall, by doing that, once our GDPs are high, then we shall see the rise in our healthcare systems. We shall see the rise in our infrastructure, roads, in railways and airports, because there will be more people coming in to pick something. But if we keep our eyes low, then we are losing out. Thank you so much. We shall keep engaging in this every other day, so that we find a lasting solution to African business sector. Thank you so much. I remain Bright Metese.